center because it helps with our bandwidth with some of the presentations. So thank you for that. We're going to get going here shortly. I'll give it another minute, and I'll introduce an incredible coach that we have here tonight to present, as well as do a little ground housekeeping with you. So I'll give it a minute. I'll go to 70. Can't see my 702. We're going to get going. Well, welcome tonight.
I'll hit record.
Yeah, well, yeah, hit record for me. Thanks. Well,
I know she likes to interrupt.
That's all right. You got it?
Recording in progress.
There we go.
Okay. Welcome everybody tonight, and this series of online Zooms that we're doing is really been a great platform for getting information out in so many areas and keeping connected with everybody. Tonight we have Sasha Rearick on to present on some development and some ideas that he has. He's currently a performance director at Apex 2100, which is a new international ski academy in Teens, France. He was formerly with the U.S. ski team for 19 years as men's head alpine coach, and 10 years men's alpine, and for 10 of those years, for 2008 to 2018, I believe he was head coach. Correct, Sasha?
Yep.
So yeah. So the last 3 years, and in the last 3 years before that, he was a men's development coach and leading Project 26. Okay, for the effort that we have there. Prior to that, he was a teacher and coach at Green Mountain Valley Academy, and he brings a perspective from a wide range of not only junior development but elite development and education for coaches that is important in terms of understanding skill development and a whole aspect of how we train kids, how we should train them, when we train them, and what we should be looking for. So I know that this information for me is really important. I've listened to Sasha for a long time and watched this stuff on the content we got from the U.S. ski team and have learned a lot from it. And I can only imagine after talking with him and the way that he thinks that it's an incredible opportunity for us to hear some ideas that are really, really effective and kind of a little different take on things and effective out of the box thinking, which is really important, I think, for all coaches, not to be so roped into everything that is mainline, but to have that information and then have the ability to be able to think out of the box. Little ground rules tonight. We'll have a chat box going that will have the ability for you guys to, put questions in there. We'll monitor that. I'd rather take them at the end, but if it looks like we should do it in between and then we have a break, I'll bring them up to Sasha. If you are looking to be getting some of this for credit tonight, please put your name and your USSA number in the chat box, and our administrative director, Alicia Ferrone, will record that. And at the end of this, we will send the content of this presentation along with the list of coaches who would like to participate in getting some recognition for that. Am I missing anything, Alicia?
No, that sounds good.
Excellent. Okay, I'm going to ask again that everybody turn off their video that is not on this presentation so that we have that bandwidth. And so, Sasha, with that, I will turn this over to you.
Thank you, Merrick, for the good, nice introduction. Welcome, everybody. I'm just going to share my screen here so you can see the presentation. Is that working?
Yes, that's working.
Okay. Just wanted to take a moment to talk with you all about what I'm seeing as basics. And it's interesting as I step into a new world of working at Apex and across the pond and working at this new International Ski Academy. One of the things that's been really fascinating has been working with people from different cultures and coaches from around the world and athletes from around the world. So it's been essential for me to be able to come in and create kind of a consistent vocabulary. And I was challenged as I walked in the door from Clive Woodward, who is a famous rugby coach who's been involved in Apex. He said, what are your basics? What are the basics of the sport? And it was kind of funny because it was the same question that we were asking ourselves at the U.S. ski team. What are our fundamentals? What are the fundamentals? And, it's in 2014, many of you guys have maybe remember, but I spent a lot of time talking about fundamentals. What are the fundamentals and how we develop the fundamentals? So I was able to rattle off the fundamentals, but he was like, well, what else is basic to the sport? And it's been led into this real detailed kind of step-by-step process that I've been going through for the last couple of months. So I wanted to kind of take the evening to share with you, and I wanted to thank you for joining me tonight. I guess, can you guys see? There we go. I'm going to move that a little bit. The game of basics. What are basics? And basically, it's the fundamental found, or what is technically and tactically, which has been found to be true in the past. If you do these well, you're going to improve. You're going to ski faster. If you do them wrong, you're going to be slow. You're going to make mistakes. What I found when talking about basics, and we looked at basics in the military, we looked at basics in sport, we looked at basics in business. These were things that if you do really well and you do them consistently, you're going to do well. And it's a way of saying, okay, this is where we're going, how we're going to do it. We don't have to reinvent the wheel every year, every 6 months, every decade. We can just say this is what is kind of the roadmap of the sport. It also allows for when the pressure is on. How do you handle pressure is about shifting your focus of attention. Where are you going to shift it to? And if you have certain cornerstones in your basics that you can shift your attention to, that's going to help you handle pressure or when there's stress has been pushed on you. The goal of this is to create a simple language that you can always rely on. And I expect, what I would like from you is there's a lot of people on the phone tonight and on the call, is if there's things that don't make sense or stuff like that, give me some feedback. Merg's going to send around my email. I'd love to hear your feedback, how we can make this even more simple language. A common, simple language is what I find is most important. When I don't know if you've read the Talent Code, but one of the books that I really impressed me was the Talent Code, and how it looked at academies around the world or clubs around the world or experts around the world and how they gain their expertise. And one of the things that came out of that was this idea of being able to chunk apart their craft, chunk it apart and really focusing on learning that part of their craft and then building those chunks back together. So when I thought about it, what are the chunks of ski racing we're trying to break apart and understand? So the first one of the basics is spark and fun. I think so often we talk about technique and tactics and this and that, and how we're gonna improve our fundamentals. But I think most important is maintaining and sparking that enthusiasm and passion for the sport. What we do as coaches, as teachers, really has an effect on spark and fun. That environment where we create is safe to allow that to flourish. Decision-making, tactics. We often talk about as tactics. What are the tactics in the sport? But really, it's decision-making. What we want to do is expose our athletes to make the right decisions. Many times they're going to make mistakes. We want them to learn from those mistakes. We want them to make the mistakes and learn from them. Embrace that opportunity. Skills is a basic fundamental, is a basics. We often talk about skills and fundamentals, but they get mixed together. So tonight I hope to be able to separate those out so we can understand the difference between them. Cornerstones. What is really tying the sport together? Speed generators. How do we actually make speed? The old important fundamentals, and rhythm and timing. These are, to me, the basics of the sport. And we're going to talk a little bit about each one of these tonight. But really, this is how I'm breaking down the sport and how I've seen it over the past 20 years of just trying to understand it and what's really important. This is the basics. One of the things that I'm focused on the last couple of years was really within the basics, take a moment to discover it. Really learn your craft. Learn all sides of the craft. Learn it from the athlete perspective, coach perspective, different coaches, even something as simple as balance. What does balance entail? Really understand it. Be a student of the sport. The next part is distill that down into key points. What is most important?
I don't know if Heather was listening on.
Got a little interruption there for a second, but distill it down. This is sorry for a moment there. I stepped a little bit ahead. This is the 3D method of learning and how to apply it to deliberate practice. So the first step is you discover something. You really you discover all that you can learn about this area of your sport. It could be equipment, it could be boots, it could be whatever it may be, but you really go in there and dive down and you make a chapter of your own. And then you distill it down to what's most important and key points. In America, we often call them cues. What are your cues? How do we make those cues more effective is what we're going to spend next week on. But I just wanted to bring up the distill it down. So you have this big subject, you distill it down into some key points. And then the last part is, what do? You go out there and you practice those key points and you test them and you see how they're working and you refine them and make them more specific. So this is the 3D method. Over the next 2 series, I plan to talk more about this, but I wanted to introduce this. Today is really about discovery of what the basics are. Spark and fun. Oftentimes we talk about the feeling of skiing, the love of the sensations of skiing, feeling the G-forces, feeling the speed. We need to embrace that. We need to encourage that is out there and done. Getting air, jumping, getting speed, control, bumps, keeping the skis on the snow, feeling the snow. Those are all things that we have to encourage that we go out there and try to do. A big part of spark and fun is belonging to something. And I thank you all for being here because I feel that you belong to this community of ski racing, which we're also passionate about. But as we are teachers, we have to instill this belonging. We belong together. We cohesively work together at something. And I think that's when I look back on my career, the times that I did things really well, there was this concept of belonging. And a lot of the mistakes I've made were, the killers of fun, where the sense of belonging was not part of the foundation of what we were doing. Friendships are often is a big part of being fun, enjoying the people you're around. Diversity of environments. I think this is where coaches have the ability to really create a fun environment, is by creating diversity. And diversity can be on a hill in how you set, in the games that you may play, the content that you may provide on that same hill. But creating different environments and exposing them to different environments. That's the job of the coach, to create that fun environment. Really embracing the joy of competition. So much it talks about results, but just loving the process, joy of competition. It's fun to compete. Let's go out there and compete. We're going to learn from it, do it again. The last 2 are interesting ones, that spark and fun. I think I would love to, another point, dive into much more. But having the right challenge just outside of the comfort zone. If you can challenge athletes and see where they're at, meet them where they are, and just challenge them a little bit farther. They're going to fail, they're going to get up, they're going to do it again. They're going to fail, they're going to get up and do it again. And all of a sudden, they're going to figure out how to do it. That's extremely fun. And it's inspiring to other people around them as well. And then the last one, so many people don't want to talk about it, but I bring it up is because of Andy Avers, one of the great coaches that I got to work with at the US ski team. We used to talk about how we're going to have fun. And he was like, we're going to work our ass off to win, and then we'll have fun when we won. Oftentimes people don't want to talk about it, but winning is fun. And when you do win, you should celebrate. So those are some ideas I have in terms of just a small portion of digging down into the discovery of what is fun. I'm going to jump to cornerstones of the sport, because this is, the reality is when you look at a World Cup race, or you look at a U14 race in central New York, these 3 fundamental cornerstones, I shouldn't use the word fundamental because I'm going to confuse people, but these 3 cornerstones are what separates first to second, third to fourth, first to 15th. And it's basically 3 things: pressure in the fall line. When the center of mass is redirected, are the skis in the fall line? Are we pushing against the fall line, or are we pushing in the fall line? Is the pressure in the fall line? Shortest distance. If you're going 10 miles an hour and you travel 1.2 miles or 1 mile, if you go a shorter distance, you're going to be faster. We always have to remember that shorter distance is normally faster. There are a few situations when it's not, but normally it's faster. So that's a cornerstone. And we reduce drag and friction. So aerodynamics or friction on the skis. Those are the three things that separate. If we keep those paramount in our head when we're watching skiing, how can we get faster? We can just look at those three things without looking at technique, without looking at fundamentals, skills. We can just say, okay, where's the pressure? Is the pressure against the fall line or in the fall line? How short a distance are they traveling? And do they have extra drag? Are the skis high edging while they're sliding, or are they pretty flat while they're sliding? Are they carving totally clean? Those are kind of things that we can look at. Cornerstones, keep those in the forefront at all times. Fundamentals, my favorite one, fundamentals. The definition of fundamentals is the overview, the necessary base, foundation, essentials, rudimentary.
The nature of what they would be doing.
Hello? So the fundamentals, this is like the foundation. And the the basic foundation of an athlete. And it's an athletic stance, it's balanced. We can dive into it much more, but I think we're not going to do that today. But, fore-aft balance, lateral balance, rotary balance, their stance. Are they in an athletic efficiency stance? Is the hip in a high position? Just their stance. The outside ski, we ski on the outside ski. And because we ski on the outside ski on each turn, that means there's a transfer of weight from one foot to the other. The faster skiers do that actively. So there's an active weight transfer from one foot to the other versus a passive weight transfer. So think about it as a car. A car, when you're driving at normal down the road, going to work, the pressure on the wheels goes to the outside when you turn the steering wheel. That's a passive weight transfer. If you were, as an athlete, they're able to shift the weight from one foot to the other. That's an active weight transfer. The best skiers in the world, from really the junior team up, all have active weight transfer. When you look at lower level skiers, one of the biggest difference between a lower level skier and a higher level faster skier is active weight transfer from outside to outside. Fundamental skill. Fundamentals. Upper body discipline, from the pelvis to the shoulders, it's disciplined. We can counter, we can rotate, we can lean in, we can create angles, but it's disciplined. The undisciplined shoulders to pelvis area, the upper body, leads to a whole lot of problems. If we can get that disciplined, the rest can then express themselves. Leg engagement, this is kind of just that there's connection between the upper body and the edge of the ski. It goes through the legs, that we have ankle flexion, that there's tension in there in the leg, that the femur can internally, externally rotate without the pelvis moving or rotating. That's leg engagement. Snow contact, basics. We got to be able to keep the skis on the snow. And a pole plant. A pole plant is a fundamental skill. Yes, we watch World Cup skiers. They don't necessarily pole plant all the way down the mountain. There's no doubt. But you watch a World Cup slalom skier, free ski, and they're pole planting all the way down on the free ski. Pole plant is a fundamental. It helps with rhythm and timing and many of the other things that we're going to discuss later. I just wanted to watch a little video. This is Hirscher. Got to continue to watch him a little bit. And I just wanted to stop at a couple frames and just look at some concepts. We can see that coming at the apex of the turn, the upper body is facing slightly to the outside. Okay, that's that upper, from a fundamental perspective, that's that upper body stability discipline. Okay, he's on the outside ski. And as soon as he has enough pressure, he's releasing the ski down the hill. Okay, we'll get into more of that. But just from a fundamental point of view, he's in an athletic stance. We can see that his hip is over his foot. And as generally the body is stacked. The hip is relatively high. It's not a low leg, so there's not a lot of bend in the outside leg. The hip is high and it's over the foot. See it again from that angle there. Probably one of the bigger challenges I had was when in doing Project 26, many athletes would come in and there would be a lot of rotation with the upper body. And you can see here, even in a a glide type GS turn in his top, he's got some slight facing the outside with his upper body. That allows him to maintain balance and put pressure on the outside ski. The arms can move around. They're generally in front. It's not absolutely fixed solid, but the arms are in front. The elbows and wrists are in line. But it's really the stability of the upper body. Again, you can see it from that angle. It's facing slightly to the outside. So. And he's not thinking about fundamentals is the main point. Is he's absolutely hammering down the hill. He's trying to make decisions where he's going to drive, what's going on. So the fundamentals are ingrained into his subconscious. When we look at skills, the ability to do something well with dexterity and coordination. So every single one of those turns that we just watched Hirscher do, he's adapting to the situation. 3 skills, and those 3 skills are edging, pressure, and rotary. And in edging, the big kind of concepts, the big concepts are they feel the edge or he feels the glide. Hirscher was much better at feeling the edge. Stephen Nyman, for example, is much better at feeling the glide. There's different qualities in different skiers, but those are the 2 concepts in edging. Pressure is increasing or decreasing pressure, and just this feel of the fall line, feel and love of the fall line for pressure. Rotary has a lot to do with style and environment, but when we watched that ski in there of Marcel Hirscher, there were turns that he steered, there were turns that he slid a little bit, there was turns that he went full carve. Depending on the environment you grow up in is going to develop that style, and depending on the snow and the situation is going to establish that a little bit as well. Just doing a little bit deeper dive into skills. As we discover a little bit more on edging, we can look at it as increasing or decreasing edge angle. I often hear, get high edge angle, max edge angle at the gate. How much do we want? Is more better? Is a question. In a normal format, I'd ask the answers. But based on that, we're presenting on Zoom here tonight. We're gonna give the answers a little bit more than possible. But really, we just need as much angle as we need to get around the gate, to make the turn, to put the pressure in the fall line, to reduce drag, and to run it as tight an arc as possible. How do we put the skis on the edge? First and foremost is a little bit of ankle pronation. Can the athlete just pronate the ankle just a little bit, the foot and ankle a little bit? That establishes the ski, the edge, going onto the edge. And then it's knee angulation. The next one, the knee angulation is really internal, external femur rotation. Not many athletes can't separate that motion. They do it with hip, they do it with rotation, they do it some other way to get that ski on edge. Instead of just with a little bit of internal, external rotation of the knee. Of course, that's not a very strong position. So when we need more strength, more power, we use hip angulation and inclination to bank against the forces of the turn. Those are all internal to the body. And we as coaches need to understand, as teachers, we need to understand what's going on from that mechanism. But our job is then to try to make those external cues. How can we get the ski on edge without thinking about the body? Amazing research is being done recently of just what kind of cues are more effective than others. And what they're finding is the cue is outside of the body. It's much more smooth, fast, and effective than a cue that's inside the body. So we could talk about the skis being on edge versus rolling the knee or rolling the foot. Moving the boot would be an external cue. An internal cue would be pronating the ankle. Pressure. We need to be able to increase, decrease pressure. We can do that by shifting our balance more to the outside ski or inside ski, moving it forward, back. Can we shorten the arc by pressuring more the tail of the ski? Absolutely. We can bend the tail of the ski, we can shorten the arc, or we can do the same on the front of it, on the shovel of the ski. Vertical movement is going to change pressure. The more we edge, the more we pressure, typically, as long as we're in balance on it. The higher speed will increase pressure, and if we shorten the radius, the pressure is going to increase. There's other ones too, but those are the main ones. We want to be able to pressure relative to the fall line. Rotary, we got pivoting, steering, and stiveting. What I found is pivoting, it's more for powder skiing and skiing in the trees and bumps and crud and ski racing. There's times where, the full body pivot may be effective. But really it's about steering, and learning to steer correctly allows you to express yourself in way many more different areas of ski racing. Do we want to steer? No, we want to carve as much as we can. But there's times and appropriately where by going more direct and steering the skis just slightly, we can shorten the radius tremendously. So learning to steer the skis with the feet and legs appropriately. This is internal, external femur rotation as well. I think is an important skill to learn. Stiveting, we see it done, chucking the feet, the full body stivot. This is used for speed control in the World Cup. So every time we see an athlete doing this, a high level athlete doing this on the World Cup, it's for speed control. We see medium level athletes doing it as well. And usually it's because they don't have the strength or the force or the power to be able to hold the force of those turns. So they do something to survive and self-preservation. But I think by being able to do in the focus of basics, of being able to have a vocabulary to split these apart really helps identify what you're working on and what you want the athletes to be specifically doing. Let's watch a little video. This is from Madonna. This is Christofferson on a very steep pitch. And we can see how direct he's going. It was quite turny course. The velocity of the course was not high. We're going to watch that again. Oh no. Sorry about that. That was habit of using the. But we can see he steered the ski in. And he's pressuring slightly against the fall line. His upper body is facing down the hill. And there's a small pole tap or pole movement. There was a pole plant. Fundamentals we were looking at. So when we talk about skiing, we can talk about it from cornerstones. Where's the pressure? How straight is he going? And we can see right there, he's released the ski. Look where his ski's going down. We can talk about, releasing the ski, where the pressure is. Or we could talk about from a fundamental point of view. Look where his shoulders are facing, his pole plant. Or we could talk about it from a skills perspective, edging, rotary, and that. Personally, from my coaching style, working at it from a skills perspective is not my style of how I do it. Some coaches find it very well and they can use it effectively. But for my style, it's like knowing what's going on is important. But in the effectiveness of coaching, I don't use it typically. Speed generators. Oftentimes we hear about take the speed or make speed, but how do you actually make speed in ski racing? And really, there's two ways. There's potential of a third one. But when we skate, skating is a speed generator. So out of the start, skating, getting yourself up to velocity. On flats, when it's moderate, very slow speed. Skating in slalom, skating in GS, getting up to speed. Skating at the finish. Those, skate is a speed generator. So learning how to skate correctly is important. And many of the skills of edging, rotary, and pressure are all involved in skating. Many of the fundamentals of active weight transfer are in skating. Upper body stability discipline is in there. Lower leg engagement is part of skating. think that's it. So learning how to skate correctly is how you generate speed. And then the other way we generate speed is pumping. So I have my little diagram of pumping. Those that like to geek out on physics can look at that and pull it apart. There's some problems with it as well, but it's a nice little photo. But basically, if you time a pump correctly, you can generate speed. All these little great pump tracks that are being built around the country that you can skateboard through, rollerblade, BMX, mountain bike, all through, they are amazing for skill development and ski racing. Encourage your athletes to get out there and play in the pump tracks. They're going to learn so much. If you go to a place where they got these Velo Solution ones, these really nice Swiss blacktop ones, go there and play. I mean, it's even I got to go a couple of weeks ago. It's tremendously fun. But pumping is definitely a way we can make speed. We can make speed through terrain, but we can make pump a turn. Now, what happens if we do the opposite of a pump? We lose speed. And this is what I see a lot, especially at kind of the college level racers. Good skiers, they're top 10 in norms, even maybe top 5 in norms. But when they kind of go to Europa Cup level or not, they're just not able to, maintain that velocity like the top podium guys at the Europa Cup are doing. And a big part of that is a sink at the apex. So instead of doing what this frog is doing, where there's a little bit of extension there, they actually sink. So understanding pumping is important. Is it easy to do in ski racing? No, it's really hard. It is doable in slower speeds and tourney courses. But what we also want to pay attention to is the opposite. Swinging it's much like being on a swing. If you shift your center of mass forward and back, you can create a little bit of acceleration. It's basically skiing the ski tip to tail, that there's movement in the skiing the ski tip to tail has a lot of advantages. So that would be what I call swinging. Those are the basics of speed generation. Decision making. Every athlete, every turn has the opportunity to make a good decision or a bad decision. And embracing mistakes as learning opportunities is a big one that we have to focus on. I think we all work with in society now, just not just in America, but it's across the world, is our youth don't want to make mistakes. They view making mistakes as a setback. And we have to encourage that they push the limit of where they're going. That it's okay to make mistakes as long as you're learning from them. Hopefully you don't make the same mistake twice, but that you're willing to go out there and take a risk to make a mistake and learn from it. So decision making is really what the process of tactics is about. So what are the things that we can decide about as an athlete? And there's shorter and longer radius turns. We can move the apex up or down the hill. So where do we put the apex relative to the gate? And then there's this concept of diagonal, which I plan to introduce today. And some of you may have heard me talk about it or have heard people talk about it, but it's the transition. And we can, the length and the direction of this diagonal. And then the other decisions we can make are we going to carve clean? Are we going to steer? Or are we going to stivet? Speed control or not? Are we going to go pretty straight and steer into it? Or are we going to go totally clean? Those are decisions. And then the last one is do we release down the hill or do we hold on? And there's certain athletes, we can all think about our athletes. And some of our athletes notoriously, the decisions they'll make tend to hold on. And some of the athletes tend to release down the hill too much. And we need to help them learn to make the decisions in a more effective way. So let's look at this a little bit. And it seems pretty basic, but just being really clear on what this means. Longer versus shorter radius. I really like the picture on the left, just kind of the diagram shows the red line is a very, very short radius. The gray line's a medium radius and the green line is a longer radius. Same event. If we then move that radius to the same release point, we go to the right side, we can see that the longer radius is going to travel a longer distance. And I measure this out all the time. And for example, in slalom, it can be a meter difference very, very easily just by skiing a longer radius turn, especially on flats. 1 meter times 10 turns on the flat at the speed that most slalom races go is a second. So there's a tenth a turn just by skiing around the line. All you have to do is get them to shorten up the radius, which most athletes are absolutely capable of doing. They just don't know they can do it. They can find a second on 10 gates just by going from a longer radius to shorter radius, which changes the cornerstone of distance traveled. Just a little side note here. If you run a longer radius turn, if you run a longer radius turn and you have the same release point, it does shift the apex up and out in order to give the body space at the gate. So that does add even more to a longer distance traveled. What we can see in the line on the blue, after the release point, in order to ski that longer line, we have to stay with the ski longer, which is going to be pressure against the fall line. So we go back to our turns of cornerstones. So by making the decision to run a longer radius turn, we have increased pressure against the fall line. The next concept of decision-making we can make is where to turn relative to the gate. We can say we want to run a 70-30 line, a 50-50 line, or a 50-70 line. Or I'm sorry, that should be a 30-70 line. That's a typo. The red is. But all we're saying is that the apex is at the gate, the apex is above the gate, or the apex is below the gate. And what is fastest? In normal GS, on a pitch, on flat, moderate terrain is 50-50. Sometimes actually pushing the apex lower on flat is faster. But in general, I see this concept of trying to move the apex up and out and people thinking that's going to be faster, and that causes more problems. In GS, that's the case. In slalom, because you can go through the gate, having an apex that's up and out a little bit is typically faster. But this idea, very simple, above, at, or below, you can adjust the decision making. You can adjust it on a course report, you can adjust it on inspection, the athlete can adjust it. Those are the decisions that they can make. And then the feedback is, hey, that was great skiing, but you're pushing the apex too low. Push the apex, move the apex up higher. Or, hey, great skiing, but man, the apex is too high. That's why the time's not there. Push the apex down. Really precise feedback that you can give the athletes and they'll understand what it is. Just kind of the map of the turn. We have the turn, the release point, release the skis, and then we go into a diagonal phase. And the diagonal phase can be a straight line, or it can have this little curve to it, but it should be a straight line. During this diagonal cave, where it's a transition period, we're recentering, we have an active weight transfer, and from a technical point of view, we establish the platform. In this diagram, it shows that the establishing the platforms here in the transition, in the middle of the transition, but that's situational. The active weight transfer can occur, if it's really, really easy, it can occur back here at the release point. We transfer from the outside ski to the inside ski, and then we establish the platform, roughly where it is. Or if it was really steep, we could have an active weight transfer that's actually much more towards the next turn. And we're going to active transfer and establish the platform really quickly just before we start the turn. So this is situation. But what is clear is we are going across. We're staying with the ski. We're going to depth during this diagonal. And when we talk about deep, skiing deep, and I know many of you hate this term, but it is an effective term for when an athlete finally figures out what it means, is they ski deeper into the turn before turning. So another way to say it is you can ski farther along the diagonal before turning. Many of you have heard me a couple of years ago put a wall out here on the outside of the turn, ski more towards the wall before turning, is all trying to get it. This concept of diagonal, I picked this up in Europe last winter. Many teams are talking about this in different languages, and it's just saying go farther along the diagonal or go quicker. You don't need to go so far along the diagonal, shorten it up. And then rise line, old term, drop line is just below the gate. Apex is the farthest part in the turn. And then the impulse is where the ski bends. And if we're trying to start the ski bend before the rise line or before the gate, it's too early. And that'll cause the athlete to have to pressure against the fall line down here. They'll have to start the turn, release, and pressure again down here. So that's too early. So we try to go along the diagonal and then bend the ski just above the gate. So we call that the impulse. So impulse would be when the ski bends, and release is when the ski unbends. Threw a lot out there, but take that photo. So one of the things that when we talk about decision making is what can we do to force decisions? And you can see here's Isaiah Nelson, current athlete on the Europa Cup team. He's a junior still this year. This is a video from a couple of years ago when he was on the development team. But we can see in this video that the brushes are put in the transition, forcing the diagonal to be more down the hill. He's to ski below the brushes. Okay, so this was the task of showing him, hey, I want you to decide to go, I'm going to make you go there, force him to make that decision, and then try to find a solution. And the second part was go to this brush, the black brush on the outside of the gate. That was kind of where the impulse, where the ski should be bending by. And here we can see a classic example of him going too early. So he's gone inside, he's created the angles too early. So he's going to have to slide. And the pressure builds late. He's got a good position, slightly countered at the bottom of the turn. He's getting ready to pole plant, so he's able to maintain it, but that was not a fast turn. That was a little better. So we can see it from the other angle. Release, go below the gate, and I want him to go out to those brushes on the outside, the black brushes. So this would be an example of, forcing an athlete to make the right decisions. Are they going to make mistakes because they're going much more direct and much more in a different place than they are? Yes. Embrace those as learning opportunities. I'll watch that video one more time. So the next basic concept, the last one, is rhythm and timing. And at the highest level, it's all about rhythm and timing. I mean, 80% of the sport is rhythm and timing. And you look at any high performance of ballet, skiing, tennis, football, a lineman doing his great job, judo, it doesn't matter the sport. A musician playing, when they are playing their very best, when they're expressing themselves freely. And it's those moments that we're all in awe when we watch. It's that they're in touch with their rhythm, the flow of the movements are there, and rhythm and timing. It's the reason why specificity of training works. So that last bit of racing, that last bit of training before a race needs to be as specific as possible. And that's why it works. It is clearly like, you train this, you're going to be a little bit faster in that environment because your rhythm and timing is in tune. It's the motor units are firing in the right pattern. And it works. The key though is the best athletes are able to adapt the rhythm and timing to the situation. So they're making the right decisions, tighter radius, longer radius, moving the apex up or down the hill, but also adapting the rhythm and timing of those motions. So often we spend time trying to fix rhythm and timing, fundamentals, and skills all at the same time. And I think if you really can chunk this apart, you understand, and you can really make huge, fast steps with athletes by chunking it apart into this. So we're going to dive deeper into rhythm and timing because this is probably the most specific area that I think needs to be addressed in discovery. And this is a discovery process. By no means have I been able to say this is exactly how it should be. This is a work in progress. But when rhythm and timing, we have the turn shape models we should discuss. We should talk about how we adapt the rhythm and timing, the smoothness, the importance of the diagonal or the transition in rhythm and timing. So we saw that example of too early with Isaiah starting that turn too early. Then we saw the next turn, he did it at the right time, and we saw the effect. So too early, too late relative to the diagonal. So we look at model. And traditionally, the traditional model of talking about turn shape is initiation, turning, and completion. And we talk about what are the right movements to do in the initiation, what are the right movements, what are we looking for in the turning phase, and then what are we looking for in the completion phase of the turn. There's always debate, is transition part of the model of the turn shape model or not? Is it a phase of the turn or not? We don't need to get into that, but transition is typically not in that model. Looking at it from a slightly different direction, just apex to apex model. The focus is on the transition, the diagonal. So how far are you going in that diagonal? And then when you start the turn, it's the impulse. That's when you're going to make the turn. The turn itself is the turning phase. It's the same as we're talked about in the traditional model. But then we're also really spending time talking about releasing. Release the ski. As soon as you have enough turn, release the ski and go back into the diagonal. So the ski. Now, when you release the ski, the key is, depending on the situation, you can stay with the ski or you can get off the ski and switch urges. And so there's a turning phase and then there's this transition line. And to do that line, if you have to go a long way, so you can be on the edge to help you get over there. Just in the rhythm and timing, kind of going in a little bit more discovery of this on the rhythm. Think about it as counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you could speed that rhythm up or you could speed it down, and that would be changing tempo. Some athletes have a very, very short initiation or start of the turn. They can get the ski to go from straight to impulse very, very fast. Some athletes need a long time. They like to have a long time to have that thing. So their rhythm and timing is going to be different. So for an example, Ted Ligety, when he was at his best, had a very long initiation, but Tim Jitloff had a very short initiation. So there's the style of the skier and the rhythm of the skier are going to be different based on their own uniquenesses. So understanding the differences. One of the cues that I used it last year, was just to go out there and try to teach to ski with rhythm. So they would count 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Start the turn, release. Impulse, apex, release. Impulse, apex, release. 1, 2, 3. And sometimes all of a sudden the kid's like, yeah, but 2 takes me so long. Why is it? Why is 2 taking you so long? So it's like impulse, turn, release. Why is that? It's because they're out. Then you can have a discussion on why is it? Is it fundamental? Is it tactically? So are you making the wrong decision? Or are you on the wrong timing? Are you going too early, too late? So you can have that. When you're free skiing, are you able to ski with rhythm? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So in the diagonal, there's the transition glide phase. There's the active weight transfer. There's the establish of the platform, the recenter, the center mass. The center mass moves forward on the skis. Those things can all happen in different orders depending on the situation. And that's, I think, the creativity of the athlete and depending on what's going on in the situation. The impulse is where the ski bends. The ski is activated. The ski is loaded. At the apex, we look for a good position on the skis. And when I say a good position is what is, if there's one place that you're looking for a silhouette that's in balance, are you in a stacked position? Are you using your skeleton? Is your upper body in a place where it's helping you load the outside ski? Or, when we talk about younger skiers and you look at young World Cup skiers when they were younger, there's one thing that they look the same as about first year U16, last year U14 at the gate. Their pictures, whether they're 14 or at World Cup, will look very similar. So that good position at the apex is really learned at a young age. So I think that that's the one place where fundamentally you have to be correct. At the apex, we can talk about stand against or push against. So skis bending, we're standing against, we're pushing against, and that's making sure that we're not sinking on the turn so that we're not doing the opposite of a pump. And then we release the ski. As soon as we have enough, we release the ski, we take the bend out of the ski, we take the turning effect away from the ski. But many times we have to stay on the edge so that we can stay on that diagonal to get the depth or the lateral space that we need for the next turn. So in conclusion, Spark is a basics. We have to bring Spark to what we're doing. At any time we're teaching an event, and it's so hard to do in this Zoom environment. I hope I've sparked some fun and thinking and some ideas of what you can do. Think about it as decision making. What are the decisions we want our athletes to make? They're going to make mistakes. Embrace those mistakes, and there's opportunities for learning. Skills is pressure, edging, and steering or rotary. At the very highest level, the skills are blended and seamlessly. That's what we're trying to get to. Every time we expose our athletes to different environments, we're increasing their ability to use skills. But it's really a blend of skills that we're looking at. Cornerstones, pressure in the fall line, shortest path center of mass possible, reducing drag and friction, speed generators, skate, pump, swing. Swing is ski the ski, tip to tail. And my computer froze. Nope, fundamentals. This is, if you ingrain this, the athletes can express themselves freely in so many different ways. And then at the end, that last little bit is rhythm and timing, which is the magic on the cake. So those are what I see as the training basics or the ski racing basics. And we've got some time, and I'd love to hear some comments, questions. Let me know. Thank you so much.
Sasha, thank you so much. That was, really great information right on the mark. If you have some questions for Sasha now, put them in the box and I'll bring them up as they come in. But the effort of these presentations are to keep it to within a reasonable timeline. So if it gets too long along the line, I'll have to chime in there. But any questions for Sasha, put in the chat box right now, and we'll ask them. Okay, I have one from Dirk Berger. Would you please revisit the slide on different turn shapes or approaches? What are the concerning points on the different shapes?
Now you're asking me to do something technical, re-pull up a document that I closed. I think, could we talk about it?
Yeah.
Here we go.
I was just talking about.
Look at that magic. Was it this one? Turn model or?
I think it's that one there.
This one.
Yeah.
So what was the question?
Let me get back to it. Hang on right now. Would you please revisit the slide on different turn shapes or approaches? What are the coaching points on the different shapes? So
if we're talking about, a more direct line, One of the major coaching points would be is as you ski more direct, and you're going to pull a shorter radius turn, you have to go deeper into the turn. So the diagonal, you're going to ski along a longer diagonal. And this diagram does not do that part justice. So really the start of this turn would be farther along the arc. And then the radius is going to be short. Realizing that in GS, a typical turn is somewhere between 3 and 5 ski lengths. So the time the ski bends to it unbends is between 3 and 5 ski lengths. And when you actually lay that on the snow, it's remarkable how short it is and how short that arc is. So realizing that as we go more towards that short arc, you have to go farther and deeper and more movement. As we go on a rounder line, typically what happens is they start the turn too early, and then they crowd the gate, so they have to release and pressure again. So those are kind of coaching points that I would bring up in those areas.
Okay, I have another question that says, I've always been taught to have skis pointing at the next gate when you're at the gate, which implies apex above the gate. Is that something that you can discuss?
Mm-hmm. No, I think for slalom that does hold true, and it's a good kind of cue. So when you make contact with the gate, that the skis are facing the next gate for slalom, and then you're going to just complete the turn before you release it. You're going to get just a little bit more height than that, and it's probably about 1.80 meters to 2 meters higher than that, but not more. That's why you saw those release brushes in there. Most athletes tend to want to go up too high. So then there's this pause, and this pause makes it so that the rhythm and timing is lost. So in slalom, yes, contact at the gate. In GS, I would not say that that's ideal. Because if you do that, you end up having to ski a lot longer line to allow the body to have room to go by the gate. Where in slalom, you're going through the gate. So in GS, at the apex of the turn is typically at the gate.
Okay, I have one from Dan Chase who says, Sasha, can you, your thought about pole touch and developing rhythm and timing?
Amazing. That's all it's all about. The ability to pole plant correctly is a magic. If an athlete has a proper pole plant and is able to actually just have that rhythm, for a touch or a pole plant in slalom, it's going to help them just adapt their rhythm and timing for the situation. So we can have a rhythm change or whatever. And just that change of this, which is going to cause the rhythm to speed up or slow down, is amazing. What I see oftentimes is coaches are not focused enough on actually teaching the proper mechanics of a pole plant. And it's not only too recently that I spent time with mobiles coaches that I actually relearned how to teach a pole plant correctly. And a big part, if everybody can see my wrist, elbow, and shoulder, if these are generally in line, then I can efficiently pole plant. But what we see so often is the elbow higher, the wrist higher, the wrist cocked. And all of a sudden now any kind of pole plant is somewhere with the shoulder, with the wrist, the elbow, something weird. And all this, of course, that athlete's not going to feel comfortable with it. So just getting the wrist, elbow, and shoulder in line and just being relaxed, and just most of the pole plant is coming from the wrist is key. As soon as you kind of learn that, and they can then bring that into slalom, it's amazing how they are much more adaptable in their skiing.
Okay, I have one from Alex Averari. Please put in the words, please put in the words how the apex position should feel to an athlete.
It's kind of the landing phase of a jump, right? So imagine doing a backflip on a trampoline. The tension that you would feel when you land through a trampoline. You're stacked, right? You're going to have your shoulders, your hips, and everything. You're going to feel the forces. You're going to build the forces, and you're going to take that energy. So at the apex of a turn, you're stacked. You're feeling the tension. Or if you're doing a box jump, the landing on a box jump where we're changing direction. That's what the force is going to feel like.
Okay, I have one from Dave Wynn. What are your thoughts on pole length at the development level?
Good question. And there's probably people that know better than me. I would say that, the standard, turn the basket upside down, you have 90 degrees at the elbow, is probably pretty close.
Yeah, it probably is. Dave is got a formula for that. So, but hopefully that answers this question. Terry Della Quadri says, Sasha, my experience with juniors, U14, etc. in Europe is that they push ski length for GS longer than most clubs in the USA. Is this what you're seeing now that you're on the ground with juniors over there?
At U14 level, I wouldn't. I can't honestly say that, because I think when I saw a lot of great U14 skiers this summer. I was blown away with the amount of great U14 skiers on the Val d'Isère Glacier this summer, but I didn't notice that the skis were that much longer than typical. And I think maybe part of that might be due to that they were skiing on their skis from last winter, and the kids had grown. So let me get back to you, Terry. Call me in January. It'll be great to catch up.
Okay. And then, we'll kind of wind on down here right now. I have one from Jennifer Best. Do you have any fun new drills for younger athletes that can help them discover how to generate speed?
Skating races, pumping races, go play in the pump tracks. If you have pump tracks at home with the mountain bikes, get the Brower out and see who can pump around that as fast as who can do it the fastest. I think learning the concept outside of skiing is a lot easier. And then you can bring that concept into skiing. And in most towns, they're building these little pump tracks in dirt. And you can do the same thing there. Skating races, skate forward, skate backwards, skate uphill, skate downhill, skate with poles above your head, skate poles behind your head, get low, and skate. Try to stay low. Skate. If you're coaching young kids like U10s, skate forward, backwards. Just play games, go play soccer, go play whatever you can on skis. They will get better. They're going to get balanced. They're going to get athletic on their skis. They're going to have a natural athletic movements in their skiing stance. It's amazing stuff.
Yeah. And so we're going to kind of wrap this up right now. So I just, a lot of thank you for this on the chat there, Sasha. And yes, this presentation will be loaded up on the Nishra site so you guys can watch it again. One other thing, let's just see here. They want you to keep posting your videos on Instagram. So that's a big connection for you. And it's when it says here, I find the options of ski length, radius, and construction being mismatched for middle range of U14s. I think that a lot of you guys should talk to your coaches about that too. One thing we had in our equipment section a couple of weeks ago was that the triangle of having when an athlete is buying skis in your program, to get the coach involved with the information to go to that equipment portal you're using, whether it's a shop or whatever you're using, so that there's a triangle of information that's really effective for you to get the right match for your athlete with the right ski. So keep that in mind. I want to thank Sasha so much tonight for so much great information. Hard to digest this for a lot of people all at once, so we will post this. Really looking forward to next week as we bring this into more focus for junior programs and how effective these concepts can be. I know that in terms of my mindset, Sasha, I have been, and I know Kathy is on here too, that we have been in a similar mindset for a long time. And I know that the success you've seen and the success you're going to have is coming from your ability to be able to think out of the box and just think clearly and precisely and simply like this. So I really thank you so much tonight for this presentation.
Thank you so much for having me, Eric. It's been a pleasure. Look forward to next week. And if there's any little parts of this that you feel like I could tie into next week's, but really next week is when we talk about the 3D model, discover, distill, do, the deliberate practice. What do we do as coaches to go out there and set up the deliberate practice environments so our athletes learn?
Yeah.
That's what next week's about. So if there's anything that needs to be rectified or simplified down or clarified,
Yeah.
Please,
So,
Ryan.
I'll check in with you when it works for you towards probably a big week this week, but I'll check in with you towards the end of the week.
Okay, sounds great.
Thank you,
Have a great
Sasha.
week. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. And I'll post Sasha's email along with the presentation on our website when we get that up. Thanks for being a part of this tonight, and excellent job. Thank you so much, Sasha.
Thank you.